time for a perspective on the programme for you, and it's estimated that human beings are now producing 300 million tonnes of plastic every single year. 8 million tonnes of that finishes up in the ocean, and 50% of the plastic that's produced is used just once before being dumped again. Evidently, human beings really are addicted to plastic, a material that is also virtually indestructible. Well, to try to help combat this week, UNESCO is hosting an international conference here in Paris, not by any means just about plastic, but providing researchers and those who depend on the oceans a chance to really debate to try to find a way to keep our oceans healthy. With me here on set is one of the delegates. She's hosting a panel at that conference as well, Julia Schnetzer, who's from Ocean Plastic Lab campaign manager with the German Marine Research Consortium. Thanks very much for being with us on the
Good
program.
morning, thank you for having me.
Let's start off by talking about the problem of plastic in the ocean. I mean, it's a subject obviously that we've heard quite a lot about recently. I mean, it's given us some horrific pictures recently, hasn't it, about the sheer amount really of plastics that's being found in our seas.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So what you just said at the beginning, so we have about 8 to 12 million tons of plastic entering the ocean each year. It's probably getting more and more. Also, what you just said, probably we're already producing this year around 400 million tons of plastic. So this is massive. And it's not just ending up in the ocean, it's also ending up in the environment everywhere. So we also have a massive problem with contamination of plastics, for example, in soils or in agriculture.
I'm sure this is something you've been aware of for a while, but I mean, it's really been brought to the world's attention, if you like, just within the last year, hasn't it? I mean, why has it suddenly become such a hot topic when I'm sure you've been talking about it for ages?
Yeah, of course, yeah, for me, it's not such a new topic. I think it's projects like, for example, the Ocean Cleanup, who actually brought a lot of attention to this problem. And also I think social media helped a lot as well, because people were sharing their pictures they made on their holidays. And it's also kind of like an easy topic to talk about because you can easily see it. So if you go to the beach, you find plastic. It doesn't matter where you go, you will always find plastic. So yeah, it's very prominent for everyone to see. And
it's really starting to be found everywhere, isn't it? There was a report just the other week with people who were incredibly deep in the ocean. They even found plastic there, didn't they? Yeah, that's actually not so surprising. So actually it's estimated that most of the plastic in the ocean is on the seafloor because most of the plastic actually sinks. So most of the plastic is more dense than seawater, so it eventually sinks down. So yeah, it's estimated that about like 50% of all the plastic in the ocean is actually down there. But then also, I think they found now microplastics on mountains, on really high mountains, because they get distributed by the wind. So yeah, I don't think there's any place on Earth where there is no plastic. Tell us a bit about your project, Ocean Plastic Lab. What's that all about? Yeah,
so the Ocean Plastics Lab is an international traveling exhibition, which actually belongs to the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. And so what we're trying to do is to educate the broad public about the problem of plastic in the ocean, but from the view of science. So the whole exhibit is made of like actually science projects. So all you can see there and study actually comes from science itself, so from scientific projects or scientists themselves. So this exhibition is an outdoor exhibition traveling around the world. It's a free admission, so everyone can see it. And actually we have been in France or in Paris already 2 years ago.
Yeah. Perhaps you'll come back one day, who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
I mean, we've heard just in the last 24 hours, in fact, Canada has become the latest country to say we're going to ban single-use plastics over the next 2 years. We've had legislation which is already going through the books, if you like, in Europe as well. Is that going to be enough? I mean, is what we're trying to do now to catch up with this problem going to solve it?
Not yet. So it's a start So, for example, what the EU is doing with the single-use plastic ban, it's a start with some products, but there's still much to go. For example, they still not taken into account, for example, the plastic bottles, which are actually like one of the biggest plastic sources. So we really have to reduce that as well. It's a start, but we still have a lot to do, I think.
And it's individuals as well, isn't it? I mean, there's nothing more frustrating. In the flats where I live in Paris, for example, we have big recycling bins downstairs, which we always try to put our stuff into, but half the time you lift up the lid and there's ordinary rubbish in it, or vice versa. You see plastic that people have just dumped in an ordinary bin. How can we make sure that people are just more careful, individual people, to try and solve the problem, do you think?
That is kind of That's kind of a tricky question, because we also still have a lot of issues in our recycling system, which means that also even if you recycle, it doesn't mean that in the end it really gets recycled, because we can't really handle all that recycling. We don't have the system in place. So I think often it's the problem that we try to put it on the individual person, you know, that they're doing everything wrong, and I would say that's not true. But still, we need that people recycle, and we need to make them aware of that. So I think it's really important, you know, to start from a young age, you know, to really educate kids already in school that recycling is really important, and also show them the consequences. Like, for example, this is really powerful with all these ocean issues, you know, like this really works with people. If you see turtles, you know, like entangled in plastic, I think that really helps people to do better recycling.
Yeah, so in other words, it's the world's fault as well for not doing enough to deal with this recycling. I mean, we've had some countries, haven't we, sending the recycling back again, saying we can't cope with this.
Exactly. So, often Europe is kind of doing like, oh, we are great recyclers, but it's not so true. For example, especially Germany is always kind of selling that we are such great recyclers, but actually we just recycled about like 50% of our garbage, because there's a lot of plastic which is not so easily recycled, and that's what we're all exporting to Asia mainly. But Asia now said, like, we also don't want this stuff anymore. So right now we really have a problem. So one of the solutions is burning the plastic, but this is really bad for climate change, for example, and also because those plastics are really toxic. So we really don't have a proper solution at the moment how to deal with that. So what we actually have to do is we have to start at the source and reducing our plastic amount.
And just finally, we need to mention the rest of the conference, because I know the conference is about other issues as well to do with marine life and the oceans as well. I mean, what other issues are there that need tackling?
There are plenty of issues. So you have, like, for example, you have climate change, you have ocean acidification, you have overfishing, which is a huge issue as well. You have other kinds of pollution, like pharmaceutical pollution, heavy metal pollution, too much nutrition via
different nutritions in the water.
From agriculture. There's a lot of threats the ocean is facing, and if we want to have a healthy ocean, there's a lot of issues we actually have to solve.
Well, good luck with the conference today. Thanks very much for coming in and talking to us about it. Julia Schnetzer, who's Ocean Plastics Lab Campaign Manager with the German Marine Research Consortium. Thanks very much for being with us on the programme today.